Beari agus Céad Míle Fáilte. You are all very welcome indeed. I have with me in the studio two very well-known musicians, both flute players, playing different kinds of music. James Galway, well, one of the greatest flute players in the world. Matt Molloy, well known to us all, and one of our great flute players in the field of Irish traditional music. They have met before, and we thought it would be a good idea to bring them into a studio to play for each other and to play for you, and to talk about their musical background. Now, what am I doing here? Well, I can assure you I'm not going to do very much. I promise not to intrude myself too much into these proceedings, but to let these good men get on with the work. And just to set the mood, we're going to have, first of all, a couple of pieces of music. First, James Galway, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
And I know that you live outside Ireland, and we're delighted to have you back here in Ireland. And you are from Belfast, but we'll come to that later. Now, you're going to...
So, you don't have to.
So, you're going to play, first of all, Sonatina by Berkeley.
Yeah.
You know you're going to play that, don't you?
Oh, I think it's been on the books for some time.
Right. Thank you very much. At the piano there, by the way, we also welcome Philip Maul, and helping out there is our own John Kinsella. Matt Molloy, it's your turn, and by the way, I'd like to tell people who may not be too familiar with Irish traditional music that it's very usual for musicians to play two dance tunes together, two reels, two jigs, without interruption. Usually they change key for the second one, and this gives a very nice musical effect. So Matt Molloy is going to play a couple of reels from, I think, Matt, your own part of the country.
Yes, the first one is from Roscommon. It was composed by a blind flute player from Ballyfarnan.
Oh, Josie McDermott.
Josie, yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, Matt is accompanied by a fellow member of the Bothy band, Dónal Lunny, and of course a great musician in his own right. So, McDermott's reel, and the second is...
Martin Ansboro's from Mayo.
of course, Matt Molloy, James Galway are both playing flutes, but they're very different types. Could we just talk about this golden flute?
This one here.
Yes. It looks very expensive.
It is very expensive. It is about £2.10. Mind you, it would have been cheaper if I paid cash.
This you had made special.
Yes. I mean, I can't tell you how much it's worth because it's just a unique instrument.
You don't value it in money.
I mean, I think I would rather sell my soul than sell my flute. You know, I think souls are easier to come by, actually.
Well, musically, of course, there's also a very different system of playing. I mean, you're playing on all these elaborate keys and running up and on. Matt, you're playing it's a wooden flute, isn't it?
It's the open system.
Yeah. Where you just cover the holes.
Yeah.
And you can also, of course, when you're doing that slide or bend a note, or can you?
Yeah, yeah.
Which, in a way, you can't do in this.
No.
But you...
That's shut down.
Definitely not.
But just to show the different qualities and the techniques, we're going to hear, this can be shown very well on slow music. So we're going to hear two slow airs. First of all, James, you're going to play Debussy Syrinx. And then Matt Molloy will play a slow air, which is the air of an old traditional song called Dark is the Colour of My True Love's Hair. But first, James Galway, Debussy. the way, Matt, I'm glad to see you keeping up the very old custom there of surprise, of playing a fast tune after a very slow tune, which was very common in the old days amongst traditional flute players. I think the reason was to relieve the tension of the tragic slow air. You suddenly come back into
But I think that fella felt a bit bad about the
girl, true love's hair, and
you know, the course of the lament. In the course of the lament, he you know, there wasn't something quite right about the relationship.
Maybe he remembered somebody else.
So it's just better to put him in a better humour, I think.
now to go back to the beginnings. James Galway and Matt Molloy, your first exposure to music, yours was in Belfast.
Yeah, really, I sort of grew up into music. My parents were musical. They were both workers. My father worked in a shipyard. That is until 1945, and then he was temporarily unemployed until about 1956 or something. And, my mother, she was a winder in a textile mill, and she played the piano. She was a terrific folk piano player. If you sang a tune to her, she'd play it straight away, but she had her own curious harmony for everything, you know. I mean, it was sort of funny.
Yeah.
But I was very lucky growing up there because I had a sort of introduction to music being played in a manner which was really free. Mm-hmm. You know, this is one of the differences between us. He can play really free, you know, in a way, which I can't because of the bind of playing classical music. You know, you have to be very serious, you must take it serious and all that, you know. I mean, don't let anybody enjoy it, for God's sake.
But skipping over years, I know you went to London and that, and played, I think, in the Metro, did you? Or in,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, that was
busking.
a very good job, that. It was when I was a student in Paris. There wasn't anybody in the Metro in those days. I mean, nowadays in the Metro, there's a guy every 5 yards, you know. You can't get a place. I've been thinking of going back to the Metro, you know.
But eventually you ended up then, or at least for a while, with what is called Herbie's Band. And if you don't know, of course, the other name for Herbie's Band is...
The Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra.
How did you get in there?
Oh, I just did an audition. You don't want to hear about that, do you? You want to hear about that?
Go on, you tell us.
I turned up to do an audition in Munich. And I was slightly late, actually. I was about 10 minutes late for the audition. And they said, where have you been? I said, well, I was supposed to get here at 12 o'clock, but the plane was late. And they said, oh, we sent you a telegram to say come at 9, but you don't need to play anyway because everybody's so fantastic. So I thought, well, they can't be that good. And I began to get a bit annoyed because then Dr. Stresemann, who was the boss of the orchestra, he said, well, look, it doesn't matter if you don't play anyway because we'll pay your fare. I said, well, look, you're going to pay my fare anyway because, I mean, that's why I'm here, as your guest. And they said, well, it's really not necessary to play because everybody is so fantastic and we're going to hear another 4 people. He eventually went and got hold of Ciarán and said, Mr. Galway, come quick, we'll hear you play. So I went out there and played a bit of a Mozart concerto, and suddenly, I might point out that the whole orchestra were listening in the stalls. Suddenly Ciarán yelled out, right, play a cadenza. Well, I never thought I'd have to get that far. I never played a cadenza in an audition in my life. I usually don't get that far, you know. So I whipped over the page and played this cadenza, which I played when I was a kid. And he said, right, fine, play something else. Play Heldenleben. So I played that. He said, right, play Brahms' Fourth Symphony. I played that. Play Midsummer Night's Dream. I played that. And he went through a whole list of all the difficult things. But it was only when I came near the end that I began to get a bit annoyed because nobody said, would you please play something, or thank you for playing something, you know. I mean, I'd never been treated like that before or since. And but then he said, right, play the Debussy. And so I said, well, which Debussy? He said, L'après-midi, of course. And I thought, oh, well, you might have wanted to hear Syrinx, you know. So I played L'après-midi, but I played all this stuff without the music, you see. So then I went off, and Dr. Stresemann came again and said, Mr. Galway, come again and play. So I went in again there, and there were 5 of us standing on the platform. And they said, right, from left to right, one after the other, Brahms' Fourth Symphony. This time they supplied the music, but I was damned if I was going to look at it. I was so mad, you know. And then he said, right, play Heldenleben from right to left, so we all played it one after the other. And then he kept doing this one tune after the other, so he said, right, thank you very much, and we all went out. So about a minute later, this Dr. Stresemann came and he said, Mr. Galway. He has a slight croak from time to time, you know. He said, congratulations, you're now principal flute of the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. When can you start? I said, wait a minute. I don't think I want to start. Everybody's so rude around here. I don't think I really want this job. And he said, well, look, listen, I mean, when you do an audition in Germany and you win the audition, you've got to take the job. I said, well, that's all very fine, but who's German around here? I said, well, if you excuse me, I got to go back to London because I got to play a concert there tonight. Big lie, you know, but I just wanted to get out. So 5 days later, I wrote and told him I would like to play with the orchestra, but for 1 month, just to see exactly what sort of people they were, because I thought they were incredibly rude. So I went and played with them for a month, and of course, everybody opened the door and bought me tea. I think he put the word around, you know.
Right. Now, can we go back to Matt, your first memory of music in your, I presume, in your native county, Roscommon?
Yeah.
Matt comes, of course, from near Ballandreen, isn't it?
Yeah, Ballandreen.
Great music country.
Yeah.
Who was the first?
Well, my father played flute, traditional flute, and my uncle and my grandfather, great-grandfather. Goes back that far.
And, you know, the sort of flute that you're playing, and were these in the family? I mean, where did they come from? I mean, in the countryside, you can find still a lot of... For instance, can you date that flute? Well,
this one is about, I'd say around 1900. The one I normally play with the band is Ruddle Rose, which is Ruddle and Rose. It's about it's made about 1820, 1830.
Yeah. Well, now I think we'll have some more music, and you're going to have to play. And it's a Faure, I think it is.
Yeah, Faure Fantasie.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little bit about this. I feel like this is a flute competition, you know. And this next piece was actually written as a test piece for the Paris Conservatoire when Faure was the boss of the conservatoire. He wrote this for the class. Well, I hope I get in. Now, let me just get an extra 2 inches there on this. Right. Get in tune. Excuse me, would you play a D minor chord? Right, excuse me.
you very much. And now, Matt, coming back to traditional Irish music, of course, reels are the great favourite, but you also have a great repertoire of jigs. And one of the lovely things is about traditional Irish music that you can call these tunes anything you like. And the names, some of the names are fascinating. The most fascinating name I know is Upstairs in a Tent. But mind you, well, that's not so surprising anymore because the tents they're making now do have upstairs. But anyhow, we're going to play 3 jigs, and it's interesting that some of the repertoire is very local. You get tunes in Kerry, and you get tunes in Roscommon, you get tunes in Donegal, but then there is a kind of a general repertoire. And I think radio and things are responsible for taking the tunes from one area into another. But the jigs you're going to play are what?
Well, the first is it's one of Michael Coleman's, who's a very famous fiddle player from Sligo, and he died in the 40s, and he made a lot of 78s.
He died
in America,
New York.
Yeah, and he made a great impression on musicians in Ireland, and traditional musicians. And the first jig, there's well, Joe Burke just mentioned there that it's called what, the Basket of Turf.
Basket of Turf. Yes.
But I think at the time that the record was made
by Coleman.
I don't think he had any names for the jigs. Yeah. So he just put down on the record Up Sligo for the 2 jigs. So,
it was said about Coleman, of course, too, that in New York, when he wasn't very well off, he went and recorded under different names for different companies and called the tunes different names and was paid twice, of course, for the same thing.
I was right. Yeah.
But the second one is called?
Well, the next one is from Kerry. I think it's one of Dennis Murphy's, Tom Billy's.
Tom Billy was a blind fiddle player in the old days.
And the second, I'd say it has origins in the West. It's called the Connaught Man's Rambles.
That's the third one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not the Ulster Man's Rambles, as James called it, but the Connaught Man's Rambles. Right, Matt Molloy. Molloy with Dónal Lunny. James and Matt, could we just talk for a moment about audiences? There certainly has been a big change in the last 20 years. At one time you had certain people listening to and going to classical concerts, certain people listening to folk music, and then a big pop world outside. But now it's all changed. You are now the pops. Galway, you're a pop star now. I mean, are they crowding the airports and fainting in the front rows?
Actually, somebody did faint in a concert. The first concert I played in the Albert Hall, I fainted myself. But when I actually got on the platform, I was playing a Mozart concerto, and somebody fainted right in front of my nose, and I didn't know what to do, you know. And I just carried on, you know. But that was funny because they just hoisted this character up. You know, it was a Saturday night in the proms. And they just lifted him up and passed him along.
But you have a whole new generation of young people listening to classical music, listening to pop music, and listening to folk music. As indeed, Matt and Dónal, you've travelled a lot on the continent now with the Bothy Band. What kind of audiences do you have?
Yeah, it's varied. There's a lot of the people, they're rock enthusiasts, like, and they're interested in in traditional music.
And of course, the Bothy Band has a certain rock sound, hasn't it? Or is that
well,
fair?
there's... Dónal?
Do you want me to hit him, Matt?
Well, no, the thing is that underlying some of the music we might have rock rhythms.
But what would... can you say what would be the average age of
I don't
it's
know.
very difficult to say. Of
Yeah,
the confident audience.
50.
Well,
It's hard to say.
but your music has become pop, and so has Irish traditional music. And we're going to hear, I think, what might be called a pop piece now. I mean, a showpiece. It's Tambourin, isn't it? Would you consider this one of the great showpieces?
I wouldn't say it's a showpiece. It's just a nice little piece. But the thing about music recently is that there's so many people playing the flute. I mean, how many people play the flute here? You see what I mean?
Mathúna.
You mean that 2-year-old there's not playing the flute yet? But there's so many people play the flute, you know, and they enthuse about it to their friends and they bring them along to concerts, you know. And I mean, I play the flute and in my way, Matt plays it in his way, and there's other guys play it all sorts of other ways. And there's flute all over the place, you know. And there's not only our flutes, there's Indian flutes and Japanese flutes, and everybody's at the flute, you know.
Right.
Keep working.
Well, now, this is... You're going to play now.
The Tambourin by Gossec.
Matt Molloy is going to play now a reel called The Bucks of Oranmore, which is a great test piece, but it was a test piece for uilleann pipes rather than the flute. Isn't that true?
That's true.
But you do put certain piping elements into this.
I try. Can't beat the real thing, but...
Have you ever tried to play the pipes? The uilleann
no,
pipes?
I'm still in the process. I'd like
Anyway,
to.
yeah, the Bucks of Oranmore, and this has a lot of parts in it. I don't know how many parts you played.
It's 5, I think.
Yeah. Bucks of Oranmore were never so grandly celebrated. I want to talk for a moment about a problem which must exist where you have solo players of your calibre having to play in group situations. Do you find that it limits you if you have to play with other people, for instance, with an orchestra?
Well, it depends on the orchestra, and it depends on the conductor, you know, and it depends on your attitude to the other person. I mean, if you want to get on with them, you'll do it. If you don't want to be bothered, well, you'll just sort of, you know.
I mean, you did write yourself, at least it's down here in black and white.
Did I write that?
You did, yes, that playing must be creative. You must not just reproduce what's written down on the page. The first important thing is the composer and his inspiration. The next, to carry that inspiration a step further. Can you do that with a fellow waving a baton up there in front of you?
If the fellow waving the baton's the right fellow, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I mean, this is one of the great things about playing with Ciarán. He produced the magic every time. And there's quite a few other conductors do it from time to time really very well.
And you didn't find that in any way limiting? You mean
No, because when you're in a group like the Berlin Philharmonic, they play together because they've been doing it so long, you know, it's... Mm-hmm. I mean, one guy there was, I think he was solo clarinet in the orchestra for 42 years. I mean, solo clarinet for 42 years, but he was second clarinet for 6 while I was there. So he was only in the orchestra 48 years altogether.
Well,
so they get to know how things go, you see. And if somebody new comes in, they tell them, look, Jimmy, why don't you do this? Why don't you take this note here, hold it a little bit, and they show you how to play, you know, and then if you do something nice, they say, that was very nice, and they encourage you to do your own thing as well within the group, you know.
Matt, you see, in traditional music, the playing is much more free. There's no one who can tell you to play the same tune in the same way at any time. I mean, you do vary.
Yeah.
But when you get into a group situation, as you have to do with Dónal and the others in the Bothell band, do you find that you have to compromise your own style?
No. There's allowance for that, and
Well, of course, there are
Well,
only
the thing is, with our band, is it's 6 individuals, and at the start it was pretty hectic. Like, it's easy to talk about it now. Like there was lots of fights and rows and clashes of personalities and all sorts of things. But well, we've mellowed a good lot, mellowed a lot.
But it does, yeah.
We still have rows.
Well, let's get back to music, and we're going to have a tune now from you, which in translation it's a Honegger. It's called, and it could almost be the name of an Irish tune, The Dance of the Goats.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you about this tune before I play it. It's about this goat who's asleep up a hill, you know. And then he sort of gives himself a bit of a shake, has a bit of a dance, and he gets really going, and then all of a sudden he comes all the way down. But not to be deterred, he gets up again, has another go, then he eventually goes back asleep at the end.
Now, we don't have very much more time, but we would like Matt to play. He's played reels and jigs, and there's a hornpipe, I think, that you call.
Oh, it's a type of hornpipe. I think it's Mulqueeney's. I learned it from
It must be from Clare, so.
I learned it from a good friend of mine, Tommy Peoples.
Yeah.
Fiddle player.
And it's followed by?
A reel called The Moving Cloud.
Now we're going to finish with the Boys of Bluehill, played on 2 tin whistles by...
No,
Sorry.
Tin whistle and
Tin
flute.
whistle and flute.
In E flat.
By James Galway and Matt Molloy. Thank you very much.